Hey, this is Mark Pattison back again with another fantastic episode of Finding Your Summit. And if there was ever anybody that epitomized what overcoming adversity and finding their way, this guy would be it. His name is Michael Ketterer. And this is a guy, when I came back from Denali, by the way, I just summited, and I was taking a quick moment to kick my feet back for a change and watch some TV for the first time. And I happened to tune in to America's Got Talent. Great show. And this guy walks out, and with America's Got Talent, they always like to tell the backstory. And with that, this is a guy that had one biological child, Sophia. Both Sophia and the mom almost died when she was giving birth. So as a result, they couldn't have any more kids, and they end up adopting 3 siblings, 3 boys, then another boy who's disabled, and then another boy. So they've got 6 kids running around this house. And he steps out there, he's telling this backstory, and the entire family, including his wife, Ivy, are on the side. They're watching this thing. And then he just belts out this most beautiful song, and he ends up getting the golden buzzer, which just means you don't have to audition anymore. You go straight to the final auditions with the main people. And so it was just very inspiring. So this podcast is all about Michael telling his story. He's a bright light. He's got a very, very strong moral compass. He's Christian-based. It was really a joy to talk and spend some time with him. So we're going to get onto that in a minute. Always remember to rate, review, go in. It really helps. I'm kind of getting back on this. I was gone. As I said, I summited Denali this year. That's my 5th peak of the 7. Last year I was there. I got pushed back by minus 60. And this climb is just an absolute mother. I mean, you're carrying 130 pounds up the mountain. You're dealing with weather, cold weather, and sleeping on the ice, no shower, and marginal food for 3 weeks. So it's tough. It's a mind grind. And so happy, so joyful that I was able to pass that test and move on to my next mountain, which will be Vincent in Antarctica. Okay? So that's that. Any more info on what I'm up to, you can always check me out at www.markpattison, Pattison, NFL.com. That's markpattisonnfl.com. And we continue to be sponsored by Violets Are Blue Skincare. Is awesome product, and the gal behind it, Cynthia Bestman, is a rock star overcoming her own adversity on a prior podcast that I did. And that's that. So go check them out. Great product. And on that note, let's go talk to Michael. Here we go.
Hey, it's Mark Pattison back again with another fantastic episode of Finding Your Summit. And this week, we've got a just amazing guest, Michael Ketterer. Hopefully I said that right, Michael.
That is good. Good job.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Listen, I want to set this up for the audience in the right way. I was sitting on my couch a couple of weeks ago. I just come off Denali, this crazy mountain in Alaska, and I hadn't seen TV in almost a month. I mean, if you can imagine being at 20,000 feet, minus 20 degrees below zero, you're sleeping on the ice, no shower, bad food.
Oh, my gosh.
And now I'm finally able to sit in the comfort of my house and watch one of my favorite TV programs, America's Got Talent. And all of a sudden, there's this guy, turns out to be you, who sits up there. And the judges, of course, have the same format, asking why you're there. You're a little bit nervous. And all of a sudden, you just belt out this most beautiful tune. And there's all this backstory going on. And it was super emotional. I know it was emotional for you. It was emotional for your kids. And, you know, my eyes just started to well. And I was just like, I got to have this guy on my podcast. So, first of all, welcome to the show. And I just want to talk about that experience and then get into other parts of your life because it's so fascinating.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I am just telling you, man, it's been a wild journey ever since I walked out on that stage.
Yeah. So what was the point? Oh, we're going to get into your background here in a few, so don't want to reveal all the beans but right now because you do have a musical background and you're a very good singer. But what was that switch that made you, I want to go apply for this show and see if I can get on and get in front of all these people?
Well, somebody kind of reached out to me to see if I would be interested in going on the show. And I really started to think about it and pray about it and thought, is this the right move to make right now? And I just had such a peace about moving forward with America's Got Talent because compared to a lot of the other competitive shows about voices and stuff, obviously it's about the talent, but it's more than that. They go into the story. And I really felt like I wanted to go out there and not just go out on my own, but really take my family out there with me and shine a light on the things that I'm really passionate about.
Well, look, I got to tell you, I think you're right. Kind of like the Olympics, what really draws people in is not so much the downhill race, but the story behind the downhiller who's had to overcome all kinds of different adversity. And certainly you've not only had your share, but you've also helped these kids, these adopted kids you now have through their adversity. And I can't imagine what that's like. I think it's easy to say and hard to do. And you're actually living that dream. But the other thing I want to say to you is that, in which I think you're the type of guy I want to be around people like you, which is somebody with a super strong moral compass, right? It says the difference between right and wrong and really trying to lead by example. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I'd love to expand on this a little bit, but your whole kind of basis is really this Christian-based faith that you have that has allowed you to be super strong and help you make some decisions that appear to have a lot of clarity to them.
Yeah, absolutely. My faith is very important to me and my wife both. And we've never really, in all of our history, in all of our walk, every one of our decisions that we've made, always leaned into the voice of the Spirit. And that's what makes this story so wild about us adopting through foster care, is because my daughter, for about 2 years, began to have these dreams. And she would have these repetitive dreams of us rescuing these 3 little boys that needed to be adopted, 3 little boys that needed to be adopted. And so she would come to me in the morning in tears because almost every time it was like the youngest of the 3 was in danger. And so she would wake up, grab me, and be like, Daddy, we got to adopt my brothers. We got to adopt my brothers. And at first I was kind of like, oh, sweetheart, you're just having a nightmare. You're having a bad dream. But over 2 years of this repetitive dream, I always tell people it took my daughter and God 2 years to convince me that adoption was an option.
That's incredible. And so did she actually know these 3 boys that you ultimately ended up adopting, or was this a dream, this fantasy that she was having?
It was just a dream that she was having. And so once my heart began to get softened to adoption, me and my wife began to look into it. We're like, oh, there's no way we can afford to adopt. It's so outrageous. I think my mind went to like, okay, we've got to adopt overseas. What is it like to adopt from America? And every time it just seemed like it was this huge number. Then we meet this family who had adopted out of foster care. And not only was the adoption free for them, the government pays for the full adoption, but they paid them every day that they were in foster care a certain amount. And then also with that, they got health insurance and they went through a state college. Their college was paid for. And I'm like, okay, now we don't really have any reason not to say, okay, we're willing to move forward to this, because we really felt the burning of it in our spirit. So then we went into foster care. We got certified to move forward in foster care. We got our home study. We did our background check. Finally, we have the opportunity to take kids into our family. And the very first call we get is for these 3 little boys.
That's incredible.
And I'm telling you, it was wild. We couldn't make it up. And at that point, I felt like if I had said no, then I would be in complete sin, because my daughter had been having these repetitive dreams for so long about these 3 little boys.
I think sometimes, I don't know if I can say this right, but our children can be kind of the window through towards other things that we sometimes just can't see, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was not even on my radar. I was like, I have the perfect family, my wife, me, my perfect daughter, because after Sophie was born, we couldn't have any more kids, and we were totally fine with that. Another thing I always like to say, too, is that we got our kids out of foster care. So while there is a huge need for children internationally to be in a family, we were just so blown away and our eyes open to the need for orphans in our own neighborhoods, our own backyards, in our own cities to be adopted into family as well.
So you're from, I think, Knoxville, Tennessee, or someplace in Tennessee?
Yeah, originally we're from East Tennessee. I was born in Chattanooga, but I moved to Orange County from Knoxville. Okay, so you're in Orange County now. So in terms of where these kids came from, was that in California or someplace outside the state? No, they were actually right around the Knoxville area. Okay, so you're able to go back, and those are your people, and identify with them. And now you bring on these 3 kids, and that's not the easiest thing in the world to do, right? Because it's just a massive amount of integration
between, I'm not going to call it two cultures, but, you know, you've got your family, right? So what was that like?
Yeah. Well, it was definitely life altering. And I always tell people, me and my wife were naive, and that was actually a huge blessing to be so naive, because we didn't really know what we were getting into, and we didn't care. We were so passionate about this, and we were so in love when we first laid eyes on these boys. But it definitely has been a rough road of learning, therapy, just anything that you can think of as far as in that transition, man. It has definitely been a massive transition to bring all of us together as a family.
So, like, give me some examples. I'm going to ask you something just for the sake of privacy. You don't want to reveal this, that's fine. But are there any kind of examples you want to share, like the kind of challenges that you guys were up against in terms of dealing with these three boys that obviously were for adoption? And I can't imagine what some of those stories were like in terms of parents abandoning these kids or being taken away or whatever that situation is.
Yeah, I've got so many different examples, but I think some of the big ones that stand out to me is that the oldest of the three boys, when he first came into our family, he had been so used to being the parent of the three that he had a hard time letting us take over that role as parent. Mm-hmm. So there was this competition and this need to gain our trust before he would allow us to not just care for him, but to care for his younger brothers. Also, because he was used to being the oldest sibling, when him and my daughter, there was this kind of competition between the two oldest siblings. Who's going to actually be this role in our family now? You know, they're both so used to being the oldest sibling that they kind of headbutted in the first season. They're now incredibly best friends. Another example was that because they had gone so long without food sometimes in their home, that when they came into our house, they didn't trust where their next meal would come from. So we would find food stuck under beds and pillowcases, or pillows, and in the back of closets where they'd hoard and hide their food to make sure that they would have enough for their next meal and so they wouldn't go hungry. Those are a few examples. Another example was one of my sons was really abused physically and sexually. So when he came into our home, he would disassociate when you would talk to him. And that's a defense mechanism that these kids take on because they can check out and they're gone even though they're physically present. They're mentally gone. He learned how to disassociation. He also would poop and pee on himself all the time for years and years because that was a way to keep the predators off. Because if he stunk and he was gross, the predators would stay away. So these are things we had to work through and overcome. And with therapy and with counseling, both for the children and for me and my wife. But man, I'm telling you, we are walking in so much victory. These kids are just beautiful examples of what God can do. How he can transform and redeem.
I know. I love that. And one of the things that you just talked about was this little word called trust. And trust sometimes takes a long time to earn, right? And trust can be tied to love. And when I think patience is the key and all that, right? And I think when you can tap back into that vein of, for you, this Christian-based faith on there's a higher being and there's a higher purpose and you're trying to lead that kind of life, I think it probably helps you overcome those days when you're probably frustrated or the kid runs out the door and patience is just needed, and killing them with kindness is just such a key element, I can imagine, in what you were trying to do.
Well,
and then over time, that trust is earned, and then you're probably at a lot better place, like you just said, than you were, obviously, on day one when they came into your house.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Our kids had so much shame, and see, this is what we learned through therapy, is that when you carry shame, if our kid has already such an internal shame and then he does something wrong, and then I come down on him like, you shouldn't have done that, you should have taken out the trash, and I have this tone, all it does is affirm shame that he already feels about himself. So now, even in those moments of frustration, I have to take on the persona of love and compassion and lifting up men like, you know what, you're such an incredible son of mine. I love you no matter what. But these are things we need to work on. That being the opposite, because I don't want to just affirm the shame that he already feels inside.
Yeah, it's just incredible. Obviously, this has been a gigantic learning curve for you in terms of how to communicate.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because you're not dealing with little Sophia anymore. But now let's go to her just for a minute. So I read that you and your wife got married at an early age, and ultimately you guys decided to have children, and your wife almost died along with your daughter when she was giving birth. What happened there?
Well, yeah, she went preeclamptic. I think now they call it HELLP syndrome, but it's where your body recognizes the child as like a foreign object, and then it attacks, your immune system begins to attack this child in your system. The only way to save my wife and my daughter was to have an emergency C-section, in which we were just out eating lunch at Cracker Barrel. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but we were eating lunch at Cracker Barrel. And the next thing I know, my wife is on a hospital surgical table with my baby being removed by C-section. And so it was this incredibly dramatic moment in our lives. Doctors came out afterwards, told us that they both might not live through the night. And then miraculously, with having all my family and friends around, just lifting up prayers, they both came through the night. And then we started the season of healing for both of them.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that. So obviously that ties back into why your wife and you aren't able to have children going forward, is just because of this traumatic event that happened when your daughter not only was born, but she survived.
Yeah, and we were so young, and the doctors told us this is going to more than likely happen again with future pregnancies. And I was like, oh, heck no. I was like, let's keep this from happening. And then we made the best of our life, and then little did I know what God had in store for us in the future.
So where did your Christian-based faith kick in? And I want to tie this into your music here shortly, but because for anybody to go through a lot of these different things, so traumatic and so difficult, and I think you really have to be connected in some way in order to stay the course like you've done.
Yeah, I was always raised in church. My dad was a minister of music, and it wasn't until I was 14 that my parents got a divorce. And it was a pretty rough divorce. A lot of things that I didn't understand happened. Being the age of 14, I just think that that's a hard age anyway for children. And so went through this season of not really knowing where to look and feeling like a lot of my foundation had just been ripped out from under me. But thankfully, my mom got me and my brothers and sisters into this great church in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where I got connected, and I went on this mission trip. And when I went on this mission trip, I just saw so many beautiful things, and I saw the way that the Lord could work through me as we were helping out these people in poverty and praying for the sick and feeding the hungry. It was just like, okay, not only is God real because I see him really touching and impacting lives, he wants to use me. And for the first time in my life, I felt like the God of the universe wanted to use me in some way, in some capacity. And that was around the age of 14. And then that's when my music took a real turn because I wanted my music to express that in it.
When did you open your mouth and you had great voice? And when did you recognize hey, I have some talent here? Was that at that early age, or did you have to develop that?
Well, I mean, you can owe that to my dad. I mean, my dad, like I said, was a music minister in church. So when I was a little kid, 3 years old, he had me up on stages. He had me in the fellowship hall. He had me in the church children's group singing, me and my brothers and sisters, all 3-part harmonies and all this kind of stuff. And there's not a day that I don't remember music being a part of my life. I mean, my mom played the guitar. My grandmother played the piano. It's just a huge part of my life, I guess, from being from East Tennessee and being in a very musical family. So I was always affirmed of my voice, even from a very young age. But it really wasn't something that I thought I wanted to really step out and pursue until I got into high school. And like I said, after I came back from that missions trip, I got involved on our worship team and our youth group. And then at that point, just people affirming my voice, telling me it was unique, it was different, it was something I should pursue, that it actually became more of a dream for me to pursue music.
As you're telling the story, I always felt like I was born with a football in my hand. It's just one of those times where it came very natural for me, and I spent a zillion hours out on the playground. My mom would always have to open the back door and yell, dinner, and I'd jump back over the fence of a playground and come in and then go back out. And so I just knew it was always a part of me, but it probably, for me, similar type deal. It didn't really kick in terms of, I think I can go a lot further than this until high school. Kind of had that realization. let's go forward again. And I want to talk about, it didn't just start and stop. Obviously, with Sophia, your biological daughter, with the 3 kids you adopted, but you brought in 2 more. I mean, you think 4 kids would be enough in the family and all that craziness, and then you go out and you adopt 2 more kids, 2 more boys, right?
Yeah, and you know what? This is a really wild story. I don't know if you're aware, but I'm also a nurse. I currently work as a pediatric mental health nurse, but previous to that, I worked in adults, and then I worked as a pediatric medical nurse. There was one day that I went to work, and I had this, 17, 16-year-old patient who had cerebral palsy, and his mom had tried to poison him, and it made him sick, and that's why he was my patient on the unit. And so here I am taking care of him. I was taking care of him, and I just remember telling the Lord in this moment, I said, God, you know what? If you wanted me to have a kid like this, I would take him. And I just kind of said it like that in passing. And then it was so wild. I would say about 2 to 3 months later, we get a call, and they're from the foster care agency, and they're like, Michael, we know that you're the only nurse that we have in the system right now, and we have a kid with cerebral palsy. Would you be willing to take this child into your home? And in that moment, I remembered saying that to God in that hospital room. And I was like, okay, God, I really feel like this is you. So me and my wife, we both took a minute to pray. My wife said, I'm bringing you Roddy, which that's his name, Roddy. I'm bringing you Roddy because I want him healed. And then I heard the Lord say, Rodrigo will preach the gospel. And so I was like, okay, we'll take Rodrigo into our family, to our home. And so after taking him into our home, let me tell you, man, my life was turned upside down. It was turned upside down in the best of ways. And I think about this because we had such a hard time right after he came into our home because of all the therapies and all the things we had to do, that there was even a minute where I was like, God, I don't know if I can keep this kid. And I was like, I feel like I need a sign. And on the way to his doctor's appointment that morning, they had just put up this big billboard of this man pushing his son with cerebral palsy through like a marathon, said something like, been behind his son for the last 50 marathons or something. And I looked up at that sign, and I was like, God, you literally gave me a sign. And I just started weeping in the car, and I was like, okay, if this is true, he is my son, and you're going to help me in every step of the way. And I'm so thankful because I look back, and it would have been the worst thing to say no in that moment because my son Rodrigo pulled my family together like nothing else could have. All of my children realized there was a greater need than the need that they were facing. There was a greater need in the home, and that everybody needed to step up. And it caused my whole family to kind of step up and take care of this new little boy in our home. And I swear every day that he's in my house, we see some type of a miracle happen and take place. Originally when he came, he was blind. He sees now. They told us he'd never eat. He completely eats by mouth. Said he'd never attach. He calls me daddy. He calls my wife mommy. And it's just been wild to see what God's done in that little boy's life.
Well, look, first of all, it's a beautiful story. I mean, it's an amazing story. And it goes back to the thing that we were talking about before about the power of love and really being able to connect and pull people together in the right way. And I think the other thing, too, just listening to you, it sounds like when given perspective, you're driving down the street, you want a sign, and now all of a sudden you've got some dad that's pushed his kid through 50 marathons, which is no easy task, right? And you're probably saying to yourself, like, hey, listen, if this guy can do this, maybe I can do that.
Absolutely.
And that's what you did.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, it's incredible. So, okay, so now I'm losing count of all these kids you got. Now you got like 5 in the fold. Now there's a 6th one that comes in, right?
That's right, and it just happened. I'm telling you, every time the Lord is so faithful to like give us the confirmation we need taking these kids on. My wife had a dream of adopting this little boy off the streets, and literally within the 2 weeks after that, they call us up again. I'm like, okay, this is the last one. I was like, and I'm only doing it because you had the dream. And now my son, Sean, he is my dream, man. And that's what I said. It's like, it's always enough. It's like, you think that, okay, here's another child. No, it's God's going to bless us with even more because he made the promise that he takes care of the orphan and the widow, right? But his promise is that he puts the orphan in a home. And so he's not just going to drop an orphan into your home and then say, okay, good luck. He's with us every day, and he's definitely been there with us every day since.
So I've got a couple friends, actually very close friends in Seattle. Their name are Bill and Nikki Wagner, all world people. And they live next door to us, and they've got 3 kids, 2 girls and a boy, and 2 of them are at Notre Dame, and another one's at a grade school. And there was a situation that came up. It was like the niece of this and that and everything else, but there was some drugs involved and everything else. And somehow or another, this little 3-month-old ends up on the front step, right? I mean, almost like a basket hand delivered. And they had never intended to go out and adopt, but all of a sudden, they just looked at this little beautiful baby, this little girl, and they were like, how can we not bring this baby into our lives and save this kid from potential life of just horror? Yeah. And so, anyways, the long and short of it is they ended up adopting not too long ago. They made it official. It went all through. But as I was telling my good friend Bill, I was just like, think about how much good you've just changed that girl's life, her direction in life and where she's going to go. She's literally gone from the outhouse to the penthouse. And, I'm hearing all these stories from you and your background and having God speak to you in different ways and bring in. I mean, think of the amount of change, again, going back to the moral compass that you're going to be able to impart on these kids as they go forward, the way they're going to live their lives, and what a train wreck their lives could have been without you and your wife coming to the rescue and bringing those dear kids into your home. What a great gift.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a lot of the motivation for what I do every day. I wake up and I go to work as well, because I do work on a pediatric mental health center, inpatient center. I'm the charge nurse there during the day shift. And a lot of times when I look at these kids that I'm taking care of, these kids that are still in the throes of foster care, that have all these disabilities and issues that could easily be overcome if they had somebody that made that dedication to them. That somebody that said, I'm going to have faith like Flint, and I'm not going to allow anything to stop your healing and your progress, because I'm going to be a real father, a real mother to you. And I see these kids, and I look at them, and I'm like, this would have been my child. This could have been my child. This could have been my son if Nivy didn't intervene at the time that we did. So, yeah, it's a huge motivation and a huge passion of mine for the reason I go to work every day.
Just amazing. So you're also involved in, correct me if I say this wrong, Influence Church, which is in Southern California. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. At least there on Sundays.
Oh, man, it's just so I went on, and I don't know how I meandered my way through it, but I got to, and there's not just yourself, but I don't know if there's 3 or 4 or 5 of you guys that are just world-class singers. I mean, you guys can bring it. You're good, right?
Thanks, man. I think we are, and it's such an honor to be able to lead and sing with this group of people. They're so amazing.
So did you have an album that just came out called Touching Heaven? What was that all about? I mean, obviously Touching Heaven, you're doing that in a lot of different ways right now, but how many songs are on there? What is it? What's the main theme?
Well, yeah, our album Touching Heaven was a collaborative of us as friends as a worship team at my church, just coming together and getting in rooms together and just kind of going after what we felt like God's heart was for this season and for us and for our church. And I think we had some beautiful songs that were written. To me, the artists and the musicians on the album are phenomenal. There's really something about the messages in a lot of these songs that is really fresh to me as far as for the body of Christ. And I'm so proud of it, and I'm so proud to get to sing some of the songs. The one song, Kingdom, that I film on the album, is about my story about adopting and what the Father does and how He has adopted us into His kingdom. That's what it's all about. Jesus came down and made the way for us to be adopted into the family. And then the other song on the album that I do, Spirit Lead Me, is a lot about the journey of once we adopted our children, their journey of getting through and seeing healing and freedom in their lives. I just can't escape it. It's my life. It's like people write about when we're artists, we write about the things that are the most closest to us. And my family is absolutely the most closest, is the most amazing thing to me and is my life.
Yeah, I mean, you can really sense that commitment from you. And when I saw you on America's Got Talent, they kept flashing over to the side and showed your entire family, Ivy, Sophia, your 5 adopted kids. And it was just a beautiful moment to see everybody there supporting you. I can't remember, I don't know who it was, but one of your kids, there was actually welling up and he was crying as he was out there and watched. Jared was watching you. How many people did you perform in front of?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. That whole place was packed out. When I went back to rewatch after it finally aired, because that was taped 2 months before it actually aired. So for 2 months, I wasn't allowed to say anything. So I tried that on the side. That was so hard because it was such an amazing moment. I wasn't allowed to tell anybody anything for 2 months. And I thought my kids did a phenomenal job of keeping it under wraps. But when I went back and rewatched it and saw my son tears, that was probably one of the most emotional parts of getting to rewatch that.
Yeah, so now you're out there and you sing the song and you're going back and forth with Simon. They're not quite sure what's going to happen, and you kind of compose yourself, you take a moment or two, and then you belt out this thing, and it was just, amazing. So take out the side story and your kids and your wife and all the back. Bottom line is it was just a great song. It was an emotional song. You brought it, and then you're sitting there and you guys are going back and forth, and then next thing you know, you're getting this golden buzzer.
Oh, I know. Come on. That was crazy. That whole moment was so surreal. One of the things that's going on in the room, they kind of edit it, and they have to for TV and all that kind of stuff, but everyone was chanting, "Golden buzzer, golden buzzer." So it was this wild moment, and I was so nervous going out there in front of those judges and then on that stage in front of the globe, the world. I was so nervous. So when he reached out and hit that buzzer, I was just beside myself. If people keep saying, what did it feel like? I was like, I don't really even know how to describe to you. It was almost, I think I might have blacked out in that moment. I don't know for sure. It was just such a wild feeling and mix of emotions to go from so nervous to so ecstatic.
Yeah, I've been very, very fortunate to be on the winning end, some last-second catches in the end zone. The type of stuff you dream of as a kid, go up over the top and a fade route, and you come down and you pull it in and cover Sports Illustrated, and the crowds are going absolutely berserk, and you win the game, and you're the hero, right? And I've had a few of those moments, and I think what you just described is exactly, I just remember it's all this elation, but I have no idea what was going through my mind.
I know, and everybody wants to know.
Hey, what's going through your mind? Yeah. So there's another gal that I had on the show months ago from America's Got Talent. I don't know what season it was, but Mandy Harvey. And the thing that's so special about her is she's this deaf singer. She's a gal that lost her hearing when she was 18, 19 years old. And so she literally had to take her shoes off to feel the vibrations coming through. And it was just a magical moment to sit there and listen to her and to watch her, same type of emotion. She got the golden buzzer. But she was kind of unaware yet aware because of her hearing, and it was very difficult. She had a translator behind Simon. But just that whole same elation and just joy and happiness and tears of happiness, tears of joy, same type of thing. It was just amazing to talk to her and relive that moment. So where do you go from here? You're still on the show, right?
That's right, and I go straight through to the live rounds, and the live rounds start August 14th. I don't know exactly where I fall in the midst of all that, but they start August 14th. And so what I've been doing is searching for that song that I really connect with, that connects with my heart, my soul, that I can make my own. Been searching for that song, getting ready for it. Also, behind the scenes, hometown visit that they're going to do with me by coming to my home and taping and do a little video for the next live show airs. And so, so we've got a little bit of time to get prepared. I would say just enough time to get nervous all over again, but
that's awesome. By the way, where's the show taped? Is that LA or New York?
It's in LA, and it's at the Dolby.
The Dolby Theater. Okay, yeah. So what that means, the golden buzzer, you just sort of explained it. It means that you get a free pass. You don't have to keep every week and week and week when they're bringing out all these different acts. You don't have to go audition anymore. You get the free pass all the way to August, right?
Absolutely, that's what it means. And so it's so special. And it's so nice because I've got 6 kids, let's be honest. I don't have to keep going back and forth to LA.
No, I get that. So I'm kind of lobbing a big question at you. You have been through so much, and it's easy to talk about in this conversation right now, but all the hours and days and months that you've spent with those kids and going through the grind and being patient and frustrated and all the natural emotions that anybody would have. But
absolutely,
anybody out there, do you have any advice about overcoming this type of adversity and helping others? Are there any words of wisdom?
Well, I'd love to just say that the beautiful thing as believers is that we're not alone in all of this and that we have the voice of the Spirit. And if we learn to listen and tune in to that voice, the Spirit is always with us as our counselor, and he will advise us on what the steps that we need to take. And just in so many instances, we have those testimonies of the way he's given us the direction that we needed to take with our children. And the other thing, too, is that looking back, we were the least prepared people to take on this type of challenge of adopting these kids. And I'm not saying that anybody out there needs to take on 6 kids or 5 kids, adopt 5 kids, but we can all give and we can all be a part. And you don't have to feel like you're worthy. You don't have to feel like you have it all together in order to really make a difference in a child's life and a difference in someone else's life. And I will tell you this, this is one of the statistics that we learned through foster care and on our training, is that one healthy relationship, one healthy interaction, one healthy connection that you make with a child can change the course of their life forever.
For sure. Absolutely. And certainly that's happening with you. And you can see that connection already when they're on the side of the stage of America's Got Talent when you're up there singing. No question. So listen, I'm going to ask you something that you don't have to do. I asked Mandy if she sang this beautiful song called Try. And like I said, the voice that came out of your mouth and you sang this beautiful song, I'm not asking you to sing that, but can you give the audience just some kind of sampler of what we're talking about here in terms of, it's basically what I'm asking you to do is sing on your phone.
Honestly, I would have no problem doing that at all. And matter of fact, I absolutely love Mandy Harvey. I watched her interview probably about 15 times and cried every time. And even after I got Simon Cowell was going to buzzer, she sent me words of advice. She said, drink lots of water, boost your immune system, get lots of vitamin C. And she said, and don't rush through this because just enjoy the moment. And so it was incredible to get a little video that she sent me of her advice. If you go onto my Instagram, you can actually watch it for yourself. I reposted it. But honestly, I'm in contract. I'm not allowed to actually perform on any of these talk shows.
No. That's a good answer, too. Well, we can do that as a follow-up down the road. I have a new podcast coming out that sits on top of this one called Finding Your Summit Rewind. So when this whole thing is over, I'd love to come back and get caught up with you, and you can sing a few bars and be more prepared. But where can people find you?
Okay, you can go to Ketterer Music, and that's my Instagram, that's my Twitter, and that is my fan page, Ketterer Music. My last name is Ketterer, Ketterer Music.
Beautiful. Well, listen, Michael, I have really loved this conversation. I love your energy. Like I said, you moved me when I watched you on TV. I know that video alone has already produced like 2 million or something views, and it's crazy. And any kind of success that comes your way, you deserve it. You're selfless in helping these kids that you've taken on. And I wish you the best of luck in August, and I'll be rooting for you. #1 fan.
Oh, thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate it.
All right, buddy. Listen, have a great day, and just keep pushing, and we'll be following, okay?
All right, sounds good.
Hey, and thank you so much for listening to the Find Your Summit podcast. We are so glad to have you along for this journey. And if you enjoy the show, please tell a friend, share it on iTunes, spread it to the planet. We're looking to broadcast this to every person that is out there because, as you know, everybody has their own summit that they're going after. Okay, and if you're looking to follow my journey, you can find that through my social links on markpattissonnfl.com. That's Mark, M-A-R-K, Pattison, P-A-T-T-I-S-O-N, NFL.com. So, until the next podcast, just remember, clear eyes, full hearts, and remember, it takes a little more to make a champion, so make it happen. Thank you. Bye.